Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Yeah. Welcome to Plank of the Week, and what a week it's been. We are here live in the studios, and it's going to be a hell of a show because we've got an awful lot of plankery to discuss. Let me introduce you to the panel for this week. It's a great panel. It's Russell Quirk, who's flown in from Los Angeles, California. It's Susan Hall, who's come in from Stratford, not so far away. It's Laura Dodsworth, of course, who's come in, I think, from Surrey. Welcome. And JJ Anisiobi, who came on the train. Didn't say where from. And here's what they're all fighting for. This is what they want. This is the Plank of the Week, and that's what everybody's playing for. So let's get straight underway. And before we do get underway, we should tell everybody that there is going to be a new Prime Minister. So even though the Prime Minister will be a nominee later on in the show, we just want to get it off at the top. A couple of quick conversations with you guys. Russell, let me come to you first. I mean, it was always going to happen. Shortest, I mean, at least you can say she was the shortest ever living Prime Minister in the history of the world.
I guess now the saving grace for Liz Truss is that she might make a lot of money on the speech circuit, and if she walks in and that's her kind of opening gambit, the laughter is that she can actually make claim to being the shortest serving Prime Minister in history. I think she'll earn a lot of money.
She'll have to earn a bit of sort of character, won't she, though?
Well, but saying that, I did hear that even if you're Prime Minister for 45 days, as Liz Truss has been, you still get the Prime Minister's salary of 115 grand forever.
Forever.
Plus security. I mean, that's not a bad gig.
Yeah, I mean, that seems wrong to me.
Despite the fact she's been roundly humiliated in front of the whole world.
Yes.
But still a lot of money to have,
Yeah,
right?
45 days. I must admit, I didn't think it would last that long. JJ, what do you reckon?
I think she should have been given longer, to be honest. She was voted in by the members. She should have been able to enforce the plans. She was unable to do that. But Rishi Sunak will be the shortest ever Prime Minister, I think.
Well, that's a bit short.
5'3".
Yeah.
Susan, yeah, I mean, you're a very high-ranking member of the Tory party, and you guys have another election. Well,
yes.
We still don't know yet if it's an
it
election for the people of the party or just the parliamentary people, right?
Well, no, we don't know. It's only just been announced. To be honest, the quicker they put somebody else in that we can start to stabilise things, the better.
Yeah.
Because that's what's
What are you
needed.
making of it, Laura?
Oh, stable. This is becoming my new least favourite word, along with
Stable.
safety. I feel sorry for her, actually. I think she's the Lady Jane Grey of politics, and I think it's been as much of a stitch-up.
I think
I think ultimately it's really disrespectful to the voters. The Conservative Party members voted for her.
Yeah.
And it feels like a soft coup.
Yeah.
She's been more like the Alan Partridge of politics.
Yeah.
Rather than Lady Jane
I mean, the
Grey.
problem was...
That's me. Lady Jane Grey was a much prettier way of putting
The
it.
problem, of course, is that she just didn't get anything right. I mean, if she'd stood by her guns and she hadn't U-turned on everything and hadn't sacked Kwasi Kwarteng, maybe things would have been different.
I don't agree she didn't get anything right. It was actually a fairly reasonable, modest, conservative mini-budget. What she got wrong was the optics, what she got wrong with not having enough of machine around her, enough publicity. It's not fair to say she didn't get anything right. The budget itself
Well, nobody's
was
going to
okay.
remember anything that she got right, are they?
No,
I'm
probably
afraid.
not.
In fairness to her, she did trail it, quite significantly in the leadership.
Oh, she did,
campaign.
yeah. Well, she
said,
got
"This is what I'm
elected.
going to do."
She did. She got elected on the basis that she was going to cut taxes.
And
then
unusually
everyone,
for a
oh, no,
politician.
she's cut taxes.
Unusually for a politician, she actually did what she said she was going to do.
Yeah, well, that was her first
booted out.
mistake. Anyway, listen, we'll be doing all of that later because, believe it or not, I've actually nominated Liz Truss to be Plank of the Week. But let's kick off first, though, with Russell Quirk. You've got somebody else who's in this list quite a lot.
Yeah, I have. Your favourite, really.
Yeah.
The beleaguered, downtrodden victim that is Meghan Markle.
Yeah. You weren't visiting her in LA, were you?
No, I managed to avoid her,
That's
thankfully.
good.
But,
Thanks, well done.
and her gigantic ego, which I
Right.
shall talk about now.
Yeah.
So I'm nominating her for two reasons, really. One is because she's just been interviewed by Variety magazine in the US.
Yes.
And the interview is more about the Queen and the Queen's passing and so on than anything else. Meghan Markle managed to turn it into a magazine article about her.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, really. And actually what she ended up... I know you're a bit of a supporter.
JJ loves Meghan.
I know you're a bit of a supporter,
Yeah.
but just bear with me a second.
OK.
So effectively what she said is, rather than kind of lamenting the death, she talked about how complicated the whole death was for her as an individual.
Of
so
course.
basically all about her, all about her. But the real reason...
I feel bad for her.
Yeah, for her.
You know,
I feel very sorry for her. I feel very sorry for her.
A lot of us are
Married to a
upset.
prince, multi-millionaire, living in a lovely house in LA.
Incredible, really.
It's all, it must be terrible. But the real reason for nominating her is the deal or no deal revelation
Yes.
we saw in the newspapers this week, which was that, unbeknown to many, she of her own free will, decided to take up a role on the US version of Deal or No Deal as the glamorous assistant that stands there with the empty briefcase and basically is hired to do just that.
Yeah.
So there's no talking bit, there's no intellect. She decided to do that.
A lot of this.
She was paid for it. and had no speaking role, but she went into it eyes wide open. She's now turned that into another victimhood. Look at me, please feel sorry for me. And she says she was forced to resemble and look like and feel like a bimbo, even though no one had a gun to her head.
Ideal job for her then.
She wasn't trafficked. No one put a gun to her head. She did it of her own free will.
No acting required.
Exactly. She fitted into the role really, really well. So she's done it of her own free will, presumably as a stepping stone to the greater fame. We all know that she was after. But now she's playing the victim.
Yes.
Yet again.
Well, do you know, I was watching Piers Morgan's show the other night, and he had a guest whose name I forget, but it was in America, who said, the great thing about Meghan is that everything that happens to her is just catastrophic. It's awful. It's not like it was an uncomfortable situation. It was just terrible. It was like the worst thing that could have ever happened.
But do you know how bad
she
it was?
got paid to do this.
How bad it was is that she suffered it for 36 shows. So it must have been awful for her to keep going back 36
They
times.
shoot like 2-3 shows a day.
So 12 times then.
That's quite a lot.
12 times then.
And you've got more in common with her than you think. You're both where you are because of your looks.
Well, and
Thank you. You can get.
that's an important point because actually she does trade on her looks. She does. So to say
So
now
do I.
that
There's nothing wrong with that.
and actually, to be fair, I'm not saying there is anything wrong with it. What's really complicated isn't the Queen's death. It's the fact that she's got this quite complicated attitude towards looks and feminism. She did go into that eyes wide open. She did trade on her looks, and now to try and row back and say she was treated like a bimbo, it just isn't an honest assessment of what she was doing.
She also knows if she tried to get a job in show business based on her intellect, she wouldn't have got a job. Right?
Also, what's her point here, JJ? I mean, I appreciate that you do defend her, and you spend a lot of time defending Meghan Markle, probably more than you'd like.
Full-time job. Full-time job.
Why does she?
Get the
why
work
does she
where you
insist on
can.
telling us all this stuff? I mean,
One
we
that'll
didn't
go
know
on
any of
forever.
this stuff, but she insists on revealing all of this anguish that she suffered over the years. And I mean, most people now are saying, it's all right, you don't have to hate her and you don't have to love her, but she doesn't have to keep telling us about every terrible thing that happened to her in her life, which is actually not bad.
Yeah.
The
No, that's
interview
right.
was with Variety magazine. It was about Meghan. She's now a celebrity, and Variety is a celebrity magazine. That's it. They interviewed her. Of course, they're going to ask her questions, and she answered them.
Yeah.
And the stuff about the Queen, there's only 2 questions on the Queen out of the whole interview. It wasn't like the whole thing was about the Queen. And I think for Meghan, the Queen's death was complicated. So she said that. So
It was
it's how she
particularly complicated
feels.
for Harry, for whom everything is complicated.
Being married to her, it would
He needs to have a lot of things explained to him. How to not be a complete and utter plank. Laura, you're next. Who have you got?
Well, great timing. This week we've got a forest of planks around, haven't we?
have.
But Jeremy Hunt, for
Yes.
several reasons. Can I please just hit him with several reasons why
Go
he's
on.
my plank? First of all, he's been behaving like an undemocratically non-elected de facto Prime Minister. Not only was he not elected and nobody wants him, but he came bottom in the leadership race. And
Out of
furthermore,
8, right?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even rustle up the 20 MP votes he needed to get through to the second round. But he also had a very aggressive tax-cutting mini-budget manifesto, including reducing corporation tax to 15%. What he's actually done is raise it from 19 to 25%. And this is something that really bothers me, because not only do his principles blow about in the wind, according to what the bankers want on his Economic Advisory Council, but this deals an axe blow to businesses in the UK, to small to medium-sized businesses. And this is on the back of lockdown and, a really terrible economic situation.
The
And
energy crisis.
It's an axe blow to business. And business sounds like this cold, hard word, but business is business owners, it's employees, it's the price we pay for goods and services. And I think it's an atrocious thing to have done to business owners. So that... Next reason, number 3.
Is that only one? How many have you got?
No, well, that's 2. He's undemocratically elected de facto PM. Wait. I'll get round to it.
Okay.
Second was the tax increase for businesses. Thirdly, he's a zero COVID fanatic.
Yes.
He was a huge fan of vaccine
He loves
mandates.
a Chinese-style lockdown, doesn't he?
Vaccine mandates, passports. He praised China numerous times. He was a real darling of independent sage. And so when he's being pitched now as somebody who's reassuring and stable, I look at him and I see somebody who's very inclined to authoritarianism.
Yes.
I don't like him
Well,
at
the
all.
good news is he's ruled himself out of being Prime Minister, apparently.
Has he?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well,
So,
just as
thank
another
goodness for
reminder,
that.
nobody
Thank goodness for
wants
that.
him.
Right.
Nobody
No,
wants him.
no.
Because he knows
MPs
he
don't
lose.
want him. The members
Susan,
don't
do you
want him. The
disagree?
country doesn't want him.
Yes.
Oh, Susan disagrees. Hang
I
on, let's hear
agree,
from
disagree
Susan.
with most people about most things, but I really like Jeremy Hunt.
Do
And
you?
some of the things he's done, I accept what you say, that
He
wouldn't be
wasn't
on my
great.
part of
Yeah,
politics.
he wasn't great during COVID,
But-
was he?
he didn't have the same view as you and I, certainly not.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But he has come in, somebody had to come in that would sort things out, and he is beginning to sort things out. He's come in at a time that is very difficult for all of us.
Yeah.
It's absolutely essential that it is sorted out.
But the thing is, his version of sorting it out is going to cost us all a lot of money, isn't it?
I think the situation needs to be sorted out, you know, and we've got to put somebody in place that the markets would regard as sensible.
When you say sorting it out, all he's done is to pander.
Yeah.
I mean, he's completely gone against the democratic wishes of the Conservative membership, who all voted for his trust on the basis of tax cuts. All of that's been reversed. So he has no mandate, as Laura rightly says, but also it's the opposite of Conservative Party ideology. What we've effectively got is the kind of red-braced casino bankers deciding how this country is run.
Yes.
I think Liz Truss should have dug in, had some resolve, and actually executed on a plan for growth based on cutting taxes for hard-working people.
Which segues me back nicely into my next point about Jeremy Hunt. I'm afraid there is. Which is that
Jeremy Hunt.
You know, we bailed out.
Skip the adverts, everyone. Skip the adverts.
We bailed out the bankers, only to be governed by them. He's got an economic advisory council which is made up of bankers, BlackRock, JP Morgan. They're very homogenous. One thing we should have learnt during COVID is you don't get a team of advisors that all think the same and look the same.
No.
And he's done exactly the same with his economic advisory council. This is an anti-growth, anti-small business budget, and I don't think he'll sort things out. I think he'll send us further into recession.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. So I have to say I'd side with Laura on this one, Susan.
Well, that's fair enough. I will always defend. I like him. I know him.
Yeah, listen, if you like, you probably know him. I don't know the guy. I don't like the look of him, to be honest.
Oh, that...
I know that's a terrible thing to say.
That's a terrible thing to say.
No, I'm sorry.
eyes,
His address to the nation on TV was, frankly, it was creepy.
It was a bit.
It was like an ironclad fiscal budget in a velvet glove.
And he's also a cyclist. Come on.
Is he? Crikey, right, that's done it. That's told it for me. All right, anyway, JJ, what you got?
Well, actually, before we do my one, I've been advised by legal, because I called you the most corrupt man in media twice when I was on your show previously.
Did you?
So, yeah.
Well, you should be glad I've forgotten about that.
I have a statement.
Oh, have you? OK, a statement. Good. You found somebody more corrupt
my
than me.
previous statements. That's it.
There we go.
Did you have to write that down, Judge?
That's
I
important.
can't remember something I don't
Because
believe
the
in.
big thing now in politics is to make sure you all say sorry and then it's fine.
Well, I've said sorry for my
you very
comments
much.
when you cheated me out of winning previously.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, twice.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Twice?
Yeah, twice.
Hey, JJ, I think you find it's about to happen again, mate.
Yeah, brace yourself.
If you think this is any sort of competition, I'm afraid you've got that wrong. Anyway,
James Corden.
James Corden.
Yeah, an absolute buffoon
Rude
of a
man.
man.
Yeah.
Rude, a fake, a phony.
Yep.
As soon as the cameras are on, he's Mr. Happy,
Yes.
a bit like Mr. Quirk over there. But when the cameras are off, I'm joking.
He knows me already. I've only just met the guy. I know. He's got the measure of me already.
When the cameras are off, you see the true Corden. So he was banned from a New York restaurant called Balthazar for being aggressively rude to staff, because in his wife's scrambled egg there was a bit of
it was a yolk omelette, which only in America would you even bother ordering one of those. How about just get an ordinary omelette or a cheese omelette? No, it has to be a yolk omelette.
Yeah.
There's a bit of white in it apparently.
Exactly, and this is not because he's become a big star in the US. He's been like this for most of his career.
Yeah.
When he was on Gavin and Stacey, Rob Brydon pulled him aside one time and said to him,
Did he?
"Yeah, your behaviour is
so it's not
quite
just because
bad."
he's a Hollywood superstar.
No,
it's just how he is. Or something. He has been allowed back into the restaurant now because he apologised.
He only apologised because he got caught.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
But what surprises me is that a man that is obviously so fond of food and so fond of restaurants would alienate a restaurant. I mean, you would think that's literally biting the hand that feeds
Well, the fact that he apologised presumably means that he does it all the time and just thinks nothing of it.
Yeah.
You know, and so probably just walks in and out of restaurants not assuming that they're going to ban him on the basis that, I'll just behave like that.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories around about him, aren't there?
Tons.
And my favourite one was that he was once asked in an interview about his crew, and he couldn't name one of the people that was actually filming.
Yeah, that's right.
He didn't know any of them.
You learn a lot about people from how they treat waiters, waitresses, bar staff, how they tip.
Yes.
Do you treat
It's one
people
of the things
like
they tell you to
equal
look
human
out for in a
beings,
boyfriend,
or
isn't
do you
it?
look down on them? Are you rude to them? I think you can learn a lot about people from going out to dinner with them and see how they treat the staff who are serving you.
It's one of the things they say if you want to find out whether the guy you're about to go out with is a decent guy, is how he treats the waiters.
Is that what they tell you?
I don't go out. I'm too busy.
There is one good story about James Corden. He was on a first-class flight from somewhere, sat next to a woman with a screaming child the whole journey.
I know this one.
He kept quiet, had his headphones on. When the plane landed, he got up, got his stuff out, was about to walk off, and the woman said, "Are you going to help me with your baby or not?"
It was his baby.
Wife. It was his kid. Yeah, that's the measure
Who
of
he
the man.
completely ignored throughout the whole sort of 7-hour flight. Because everyone was going, Oh, it's amazing he hasn't kicked off. And a screaming baby lying next to him. He just put his headphones on and put the mask on.
Yeah.
You know, the eye mask.
Says it all.
Wow.
Says
It really
all.
does.
That's a good one.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your support.
Well, listen,
that's
we've
all
had a
right.
very good start to the show because we've had somebody who is not in the royal family, but who doesn't want to be either, because it's definitely not what she wants. Jeremy Hunt, who doesn't want to be Prime Minister, and James Corden, who doesn't want to be liked by anybody. So there we are. Coming up, we're going to be nominating the Prime Minister. Oh, no, she's not the Prime Minister anymore. She might win it. It might be an early bath for everybody. This is Plank of the Week. There we go. Welcome back to Plank of the Week, the one place where people get judged. You know, you're not allowed to do that in most places anymore, but we can here on Plank of the Week. You get judged if you're a plank or not. And I'm delighted to say that I've got Susan Hall here with me. And Susan, you work in what can only be described as the London Assembly, and your nominee also does, doesn't he?
Yes, well,
What have you got for us?
now and again.
Well, he doesn't work there
when
very
he's
much.
not jetting around the world. Yes, it will surprise no one to know that I'm selecting SADIQ
Well
Khan.
done. Excellent.
This week. Every time I'm.
What's he
I'm
done
with
this
you.
week?
Well, he's jetted off to Argentina.
Has he?
Yes.
Argentina?
So he's a complete hypocrite. he
Absolutely
goes on about,
ridiculous.
you know, air quality
Yeah.
and emissions and all
Right.
that. He goes on and on and on. Fair enough. And then goes and takes 6 members of staff with him.
And what's he actually doing in Argentina?
He's speaking at some sort of climate thing
course he is.
that he could have gone into Zoom because it was,
Yeah.
you know, you could have
It's
gone in.
amazing,
either way.
isn't it, these
Susan,
people?
is this the same Sadiq Khan that takes 4 Range Rovers to walk his dog?
That's the guy.
That's the one.
Yeah. Oh, you're exaggerating. It's only 2,
It's
but
only 2 Range Rovers.
probably 4
Yeah.
armed
What is
police
the carbon
officers.
footprint of Sadiq Khan? I'd love to know.
It's a lot bigger than his real
As
footprint.
if
I
you,
suspect.
well, that's why I've got my piece of paper. 361,146, whatever, in 6 years. Clearly, I'm not,
Cubic
as
tons.
in,
Yeah.
I'm not,
Cubic
I'm not
tons.
embraced.
Yeah.
with
It's just the
these-
number that counts.
Yeah.
His carbon footprint?
Yeah.
How did you work that out? That's
I
fantastic.
didn't. I read it on The Sun just as we were walking through here.
It's a big number.
It's a
big
very
number.
big number because he jets off all over the world.
Did you go to New York recently
New
as
York
well?
with
He went
drugs.
to New York.
Yes.
Did he not go to California as well to test the marijuana laws to see how
Oh
they
yeah.
were
I
doing?
mean, he goes all over the place.
I mean, it's not as if London's in any kind of trouble, is it? You know,
Well, you've
people
got crime down.
People are
you've
getting
got
stabbed.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
housing.
gangs.
Transport's fine.
Gangs of criminals.
No strikes. You know, he's zero promise for no strikes.
Yeah.
And that's
But he's now,
not going
just
well.
because of his great record, he's going around the world telling everybody else how to govern.
Yes, exactly.
Makes-
But
Telling
he's
them how
probably,
to govern.
probably
and-
telling them how he's making London such a clean
Better
city.
place.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it isn't, is it?
No, it isn't.
It's mind-boggling, but he's actually chair of an organisation about how to make cities around the world greener.
Yeah.
And one of their top objectives is that people should only take 1 short-haul flight every 2 years, OK? Be vegetarian and not drive. So when you compare his aspirations for how people live in cities with how he lives, it's off the scale.
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
Just off the scale.
I'm not doing too well on that one either.
No.
You're not chairing the organisation telling people how to be green in
He's a typical
cities.
champagne lefty. isn't he?
Yeah.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
You know, you do that, but I'm going to do what I want.
Well, that's right. He's supposed to be the climate king
Yeah.
of mayors. I mean, he's a hypocrite, isn't he?
Also,
Absolute
if he's going to
hypocrite.
claim that the air quality in London is actually better because of his, you know, rulings to make more cycle lanes and to make more people walk instead of driving cars, there's nothing but traffic jams in London, right?
Yeah.
So
Car
if the air
space
quality is getting
shuttling.
better, it must mean that it's nothing to do with the cars.
But what's
because
up
the
the
cars
ULEZ?
obviously are not causing pollution.
But ULEZ was a Conservative policy before he came in anyway, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and it's very interesting because he's consulted on expanding the ULEZ, the ultra-low emission zone, to all of the rest of London, and he promised he'd comply with whatever the consultation told him. Well, 66% of the people that have written in are against the expansion of the ULEZ. So now he's beginning to backtrack because he's actually asking the councils on outer London, can he use their lampposts to put the cameras on? So they've clearly got every intention of doing it, but he says he'll make a decision by Christmas. Well, let's wait and see.
Well, that'd be
because-
If he's around.
Maybe you'll get stuck in Argentina. There's another lockdown.
Well, that would be
wouldn't it?
good.
That'd be mayor of
Kidnapping
Buenos
people.
Aires.
Good at kidnapping people, don't they, the Argentinians?
Yeah, very good.
There's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we don't obviously condone
Outrageous.
kidnapping. We don't condone kidnapping. here on Plank of the Week. Shut up. Now, let's talk about Liz Truss, because up until relatively recently, literally an hour ago, she was the Prime Minister, and now she isn't. And I think nobody was... And I think it was difficult to watch her at times, because it did look as if she was incredibly uncomfortable. But, I mean, you said, Russell, well, she'll go off and make a fortune in the after-dinner speaking. I'm not sure I'd book her for an after-dinner speech. I mean, she hasn't got any anecdotes to tell.
She's great if somebody faints, though.
She is good. You know, and people did use that unfairly, because they used it in out of context type pictures. But I mean, I two questions about Liz Truss. I mean, who the hell was advising her? What sort of team did she have who were telling her to do all the things that she did? And I mean, everything she said turned out not to be true all the way to the end. Even yesterday, she said, "I'm a fighter, not a quitter." Shortly before quitting, you know. I don't know. What
was his name? Jason Stein, is it? Her father, who she's just suspended.
Yeah.
She had.
He was the guy who was bad-mouthing everybody, right?
Yeah,
including Sajid Javid.
Yeah.
It's a very toxic party at the moment. And I don't want to make this too political.
Sorry, but
Sorry, Susan.
You're not being...
Sorry. No touching, please, over there. You know, we've got very serious rules on this station.
Politics is toxic.
It really is.
Altogether.
It really is.
It really is. And anybody going into it, we must be balmy, because... even when things are good, it's a...
But they've created this, haven't they, the Tories?
Yeah,
I mean,
and we will put it right. I absolutely assure you, we will put it right. We've got to get the right...
So no general election for you, then?
Absolutely not, under no circumstances
there you go.
whatsoever.
We can't possibly afford to have a general election. I think there'd be about 8 Conservative MPs left. It would have been an absolute wipeout,
It's always good to hear a politician say, no, absolutely no election.
Because the only thing worse than this...
Who do you think you are?
The only thing worse than this Truss would be Keir Starmer, frankly.
That would be awful.
Thank you. And no, he's right.
Although I have got...
We're going to disagree again, Jane.
Yeah. He likes Meghan Markle and Keir Starmer. What a loser. I mean, you know.
Why are you here?
Well, who's the third part of that triumvirate? But the other thing is, right, the problem for me with Keir Starmer is that I think they should, because it's such a mess at the moment, I think they'd be better off, and this is strategic, give it to them. Have a general election. Let Starmer get in. It will be such a mess that you won't be able to recover any of it.
But we don't
and then Labour will be out for another generation.
But no, Mike, we don't want that. We need to look after people seriously. And I don't believe he can. He's got no policies. Granted, we have made a mess of this. We will put it right.
Yes.
I've spoken to a couple of Tory MPs who have said maybe they should be in the wilderness for a few years so they can get back together properly behind one unified leader and then come back for power.
Give me their name. Tell me who they are.
Yeah, because it wasn't much fun being in the wilderness. When Tony Blair got in 97, it was not much fun for the Tories to be in the wilderness for that length of time.
You want to be in control.
Yeah.
If you're a politician, you want to do things.
But the Conservatives aren't in control. They're not in control. It's
We
a
will
shambles,
be.
it's a mess, it's toxic.
In office, not in power. And it isn't the part of the problem, though.
She clearly wasn't in power. I mean, you almost wouldn't be surprised if she'd had puppies chained up to a radiator in the basement. She did look scared.
Cruella Truss.
I don't know what's going on over here. They're like kidnapping people in Argentina. Puppies. I don't know.
I don't mean she chained the puppies up. It's like she was in a kind of a
I think it's an
hostage
allegory.
situation.
Yeah.
It's an allegory, yes, exactly.
A lot of hostage talk over here.
You know, she looked really wide-eyed and rabbit-like, and I think a lot of people were concerned about her.
Oh, I think at one point she didn't look well.
She was under immense pressure.
Of course not.
And I think any human being looking at that would feel sorry for her. But there's
But
no
then you
sense
shouldn't
that
go
she was
into
in power at all.
But then you shouldn't go into politics
That's
if
right.
you're not able to handle it, right?
If you haven't got thick skin, you should not go into politics. It's brutal. It's absolutely
But the other
brutal.
problem is, though, Susan, is the selection process, and particularly the Conservative Party, I think Labour to an extent as well, is that they don't go out of their way to select normal people.
Thank you.
I've seen, obviously, present company accepted,
Very much.
from an MP perspective. From an MP perspective, it's cronies, it's nepotism, it's bad.
Which one of them are you? Come on.
It is, though. It is, though.
Yeah, you'll never get another election.
I was thrown out of the Conservative Party, believe it or not, for being too outspoken. I thought it was a party of free speech. Clearly not.
Obviously not.
No, but if you start selecting normal people that have got a bit of life experience, maybe you won't end up with people like Hunt and Truss.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Well,
I will stand up for Jeremy Hunt
there
again.
we go. Again.
Again, I will. Yeah, I'm the only one here, so
You
I
are.
must keep
Oh, you're
banging
the
that
country.
drum.
Yeah, you only went for
Apart from Mrs. Hunt.
Yeah, she's a bit busy at the moment broadcasting for the Chinese state TV.
related
Oh, no,
to-
she stopped doing that. Anyway, how about yours, Russell? You got another one for us?
I have, yes.
Go on.
Our wonderful friends, not irritating at all, Just Stop Oil.
Oh, God.
They have really upped their game over the last few weeks, if you've noticed. Where I live in Essex, they brought traffic to an absolute standstill a couple of days ago by scaling to the top of the Dartford crossing. The police stood by for about 36 hours and allowed them to continue to do so until they were brought down, but caused absolute carnage and chaos. They've vandalised a Van Gogh painting. They've this morning, the morning of today where we're shooting this, they've covered the front of Harrods orange paint. These guys ultimately now, it's a bit of progression, a bit of benefit versus where we were with this situation a few weeks ago. They are actually now getting arrested and charged, but with real misdemeanor offences. You know, conspiracy to cause nuisance or something rubbish.
I thought we were supposed to have new laws on it.
Well, we have, but of course we're back to the police discretion problem, which is that the Metropolitan Police, and it seems in the case of the Essex and Kent Police too, they simply don't want to move them on. They don't want to upset them. You see pictures of the police, you know, kind of almost asking them if they need anything. You know, here's a bottle of water, can we help you? Whereas actually when it was lockdown protesters, if you remember 2 or 3 years ago, kicking off in London, JJ's off again, they were dragged by their hair almost
I nearly
out
got
of the way.
arrested. I nearly got arrested. My press pass was taken from me.
The difference is that these protesters aren't screaming in people's faces.
But they're breaking the law, JJ.
Yeah, they are. But,
so why should they be allowed to
your
continue to
lockdown
break the law?
protesters
Yeah, but
were not doing
they're
themselves to the
causing criminal
rules.
damage, though,
They're
aren't they?
breaking the law.
And they should be arrested for that stuff. I completely agree.
But here's my point. This is why they're planked. Not just because of that irritating behaviour and the fact that it's ramping up, and because, of course, when you don't
It is
fear...
half-term, mind you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's always worse at half-term.
But, I mean, not that these people work anyway, obviously.
Well,
so...
I think they're employed because I've been looking into some of these organisations, right? And Just Stop Oil is getting very well funded by a group of people, we think in the United States of America, some kind of hippy-dippy sort of billionaires who think that they can save the planet, and these guys are the kind of foot soldiers. And I think they're all getting paid. They're pretty well organised. They've got some pretty decent, you know, sort of posters and graphics and all of that. You know, I don't think they're doing it for nothing.
Yeah, but it's all kind of middle-class stuff. It's, you know, the guys that were arrested at Dartford, it was Marcus and Morgan.
Well, one of them was a Kiwi.
Well,
one of them was a Kiwi. What the hell is he doing, you know, demonstrating here? Why did he go to Auckland and
But here's the
demonstrate?
point. So very irritating and troublesome, I would say anarchic. I think these guys are playing a game. I don't think they're worried about the cause. I think this is about anarchy. But also, when you talk to them about whether they think they have support, they think they do. I actually did a poll this morning of about 1,100 people and said, look, very straight back question, do you support their tactics? And only 14% of people that replied said, yeah, we do. So the majority of people, 86% of the public...
Is this on your Twitter feed?
Yeah,
No. This was a proper survey company that my PR firm uses, So I wanted to see, genuinely, if they have support, then OK, maybe the protests are working and they're worthwhile and you kind of, you know, you can use the suffragette argument then, JJ, and all that. But ultimately, they're irritating people. The police are letting them get away with it, but the public don't even support them.
I do worry, actually, though, because they mention the suffragettes a lot, right? And they talk about how, you know, that's the proof that this mass civil disobedience works. Well, it isn't, actually, because that's the only time it ever did work. All the other times, it didn't work. You know, the Greenham Common women didn't stop nuclear weapons, did they?
But their cause at Dartford was, we're not coming down until the government immediately stopped granting new oil leases. Well, they were down 36 hours later.
Until they get really cold or need a poo, because they were down very quickly.
But
I think the fireworks helped.
My question would be to these guys. My question would be to these guys, honestly, with a straight face. Let's assume that we all stopped using oil and gas tomorrow. What do you think happened?
Well, they wouldn't have any clothes to wear for a start, because almost everything they wear has got some kind of petroleum product in it.
Well, also, they wouldn't have been rescued. What was the oil footprint of that rescue? It will be huge. All the machinery that went into it.
All the cars sitting there ticking over.
But they're not saying to stop it using it. They're saying to stop new
exploring.
Stop exploring for it. So you can still use the current stuff you have, but going forward. But you said they're causing new chaos in Essex. If you want to cause chaos in Essex, mate, shut down all the Botox shops. There might be real chaos.
Can't do that. There's more Botox shops than Starbucks in Essex.
I do agree about the anarchy, though. And the thing about them is they want to rewind us back to some primitive time when we weren't modern, we weren't prosperous, we weren't contented, and we died early because we didn't have oil and modern energy. You need energy to have a happy, healthy, prosperous society. You know, when they throw soup or paint on great works of art, they're showing the respect that they actually have for our culture. I don't think they're just anarchic. I think it's a crazy little cult, to be honest.
I think it is.
They're brainwashed. They're absolutely brainwashed. It's zeal. And the thing is,
how do they think they're going to run hospitals without oil and petrol?
And 200 police officers from the Met a day just doing that when they should be out looking for criminals.
They should be out ignoring knife crime.
And you know, just like SADIQ car, there's actually a lot of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Notice how many of them have got funny coloured hair.
Yeah.
Right, that dye is really bad for the environment. Kills fish,
Yeah.
kills marine life.
What
Are they
about that
thinking
paint
about
they're
that?
using?
Are they thinking about their
What about the
hairstyle,
paint
their
they're
clothes,
using?
or their trainers?
There was a guy here the other night who was from Just Stop Oil, and he had an iPhone, and he had a pair of trainers.
Yeah.
Well, how do you think he gets those from?
And how did he get here?
Well, he didn't fly, did he? He might have done. He was a bit
Windmills.
stoned. No,
He get a
never mind.
piggyback from
It's a
Greta
very
Thunberg.
good plank. I like that one.
You like Just Stop Oil? I have to
Well,
tell
as
you,
in, I like it as a plank.
yeah.
They're
That's what I mean.
idiots.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we've changed the rules now since you've last done Plank of the Week.
Oh,
it's
have
now
you?
become a dictatorship, a bit like you. And you know, you don't
I love a dictatorship.
Yeah, I know, I can tell.
like the
I
part
can
of the
tell.
Conservatives.
So there's no more elections and there's no more choice for you lot.
Absolutely.
I decide who wins Plank of
It's
the
a
Week.
purer, more honest
Coming
form
up,
of dictatorship.
coming up next, we're going to be nominating a former Labour leader who makes his own jam. Who could that be? Told you you'd find it funny, I told you. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We are here, of course, to judge exactly just who has been the most plankish person. It could be an individual as well, or it could be an organisation. You never quite know. The nominees are coming in thick and fast, and we're going to go now back to Laura Dodsworth, because she's got the next plank. Who is it, Laura?
Well, our next plank might even be a soap opera.
Ooh.
So last week, EastEnders made their closing credits a segue into David Attenborough's Frozen Planet.
Oh, God.
And what they did, and they admitted it is not reality, because this is not,
Yes.
is they showed what London would look like if sea levels rose by 2 metres. And although they said it's a fiction, it's to make sure it doesn't become the future.
Right.
I've got a few problems with this. First of all, what they've done is take something they say is a plausible IPCC projection.
Oh, yeah.
It is not a plausible IPCC projection. If you were going on observed data, in a more plausible worst-case scenario, then sea levels are going to rise by 10 to 30 centimetres,
Yeah.
not 2 metres.
Which is not much, is it?
The Netherlands-
It's still rising, though.
Well, yeah, by that
It's still-
much.
yeah, but it's still rising.
Well, there's a bit of a difference
Okay.
between that much and like that much.
Let's move on from the technicality of how much it's rising, because it hasn't risen. Like, the thing is, if you look around outside, we're quite clearly not in an observable current climate crisis. So what they're having to do is use graphics and visual effects to bring you along and pretend we still are, to keep people concerned about the
floods
climate
in Nigeria
crisis.
would suggest different.
You might as well show London after an asteroid's hit,
Yeah.
or London after Godzilla's footprints
Yes.
have gone through it. That's how much of a sci-fi scenario this is. And the problem is, the public don't like it.
No.
People don't tune in to EastEnders to be preached to. Soap operas didn't
They
used to be
like
about
doing that now, though,
sermonising.
don't they? They do that a lot now.
Do you know, I was thinking about when I used to watch EastEnders back in the day.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Arthur Fowler stole the Christmas money
That's going back
and
a
had
bit.
A little bit.
breakdown?
I don't really watch soap operas much. to
That
be
had
honest.
30 million viewers that Christmas.
Yes.
And now they're talking about fistfuls of viewers. It's had the lowest ratings over the summer.
But
and
Netflix didn't exist back then. You can't compare apples and pears. It's not the same thing.
Well, it might just be
They've gone very woke as well, haven't they?
We had 4 channels. We've now got several
The storytelling
different
has
streaming
really
platforms.
changed. They're really deliberately, artificially injecting these kinds of storylines into moralise and preach to
Yeah.
people. And people don't really like it. It's not what they tune in for. I had a look at some of the reactions on Facebook and Twitter, and people said things like, what that got to do with EastEnders, or build a bigger Thames barrier. You know, the Netherlands is 2 metres under sea level, and actually they're completely fine
They've got a lot of dikes,
using
though.
medieval barriers.
But by now, the Maldives
true.
are supposed to be underwater, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that hasn't happened, has it? But
I presume the good news here is that EastEnders set would be underwater, presumably, and they wouldn't be able to film it anymore. Hey?
I think the writers are so out of touch with the lives of the people they're writing about
Yeah.
and the lives of the people they're writing for, that the storylines feel really hollow. You know, good storytelling should build a magical bridge to your heart.
But
this is
and the
also-
soap operas aren't
All
doing
right,
that.
JJ, look, we're going to let JJ have his say
Yeah,
about
this
climate
is
change, because
also
you're one
part-
of those people that thinks that something's terrible happening.
Climate change is a real thing. Yeah, but we can't sit and say it doesn't exist or it's
Well, yeah, but
happening.
the point,
It is
yeah,
happening.
but it's not a question of whether it's real or not. It's a question of what's causing it.
Causing it. And to what
Okay,
extent?
fine.
And
But it's
how
happening.
much soap operas should be
It is
preaching
happening.
about
The soap
it.
opera shouldn't be
With
preaching.
regards to EastEnders, it's a promo for their Frozen Planet series. The final episode of which David Attenborough's doing is about climate
What,
change.
EastEnders Frozen Planet?
No.
I didn't know they were doing that.
Attenborough's doing a Frozen Planet
Oh, right.
too. So they're promoting another show on the
Yeah.
network.
I love
It's all
Attenborough
tied
because
in.
all of his shows have got the word planet in them. Blue Planet, Frozen Planet. You know, can you imagine him going into the meeting?
Hot Planet next.
Got another idea for you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, what is it,
Hot
David?
Planet.
Hot Planet. OK, then.
Take
But the thing is, JJ,
Another million quid.
If it was just the end credits, that'd be one thing. But you know, the Nudge Unit, which used to be 1/3 owned by the government, produced a report with Sky talking about how they could use the news, weather, soap operas, children's programming, drama, documentaries, product placement to make people concerned about climate change. And we can see it happening now. You know, all the soap operas, their storylines converged in COP26.
I don't watch
EastEnders. Climate stories.
I don't watch EastEnders or the BBC, and I'm still concerned about climate change.
But you can be concerned about climate change. So you should be, because you're much younger than I am. And we're not going to talk about climate change for the rest of the show.
It's brainwashing through the TV. It's brainwashing.
And exaggeration.
Well,
and exaggeration.
Talking of exaggeration, here's JJ
I wish those would go
with your next nomination.
Yeah, my next nomination, Cruella Braverman.
That's not an exaggeration.
That's not an exaggeration.
That's not her actual name.
No, her real name is Sue Ellen.
Yeah.
She changed it to Suella.
Right.
So
what's wrong with that?
Well, you said her real name. I'm saying her
Well,
real
what's
name is
your
Sue
real name?
Ellen.
It's not JJ, is it?
It's John James.
John James. There you go.
Very
So
good
you've
name.
done exactly what she's done, and you're having a go at her for doing it.
No,
that is very plankish. That.
No, she's plank of the week because she spent time before she resigned, or she was pushed, blaming Guardian readers, tofu eaters, the Labour Party.
Yes, they're all to blame.
for just oil.
Yeah.
For just oil. No, they're not to blame for just oil. They're not to blame for just oil.
Who is to blame for that?
Tofu eaters.
Well,
They've encouraged them.
Who eats tofu?
By eating
I
tofu.
think that's correlation, not causation. They happen to eat tofu, but tofu itself isn't responsible. It's a byproduct of the
There you
crop.
go.
Well, she was in charge of the courts, immigration, the passport office. Instead of going and doing these little sound bites to get yourself more press, focus on your places that are under your remit and solve those issues.
Well, it turns out she wasn't allowed to, though, doesn't it? Because Liz Truss had a big row with her for 90 minutes and told her not to do it.
Because the problem with Cruella is that she thought her department...
Not Cruella. Stop calling her
That's her name now. Her department was bigger than the
She
rest
might
of
be
the
the next
departments.
Prime Minister, you know.
No, no chance.
She might.
No, people are more sensible than that.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's not
She
people that are voting, is
say
it?
that after
It's
the
the
last
Tory
few
party.
weeks.
True.
It's not
You think
people
so?
that are voting, it's the Tory party.
She ruined the India trade deal by spouting
she?
off. Yes, by saying that...
How did she ruin it, though?
Indian nationals overstay their visas too much.
But how did she ruin the trade agreement?
Because that part of the deal was supposed to be that Indian nationals would have easier access to visas.
But how is the trade... People say the trade agreement's been ruined, but has it really been ruined?
Yeah, it has, because they've been trying to get better
Well, you don't
visa
think they're
quality
going to
for
get
their
the agreement?
nationals. I think they will, but it's now going to take even longer.
Yeah, well, trade agreements take a long time. That's what everybody always says.
This government should be going as fast
the
as they
EU
can.
has never done a trade agreement in its life.
Really?
They're still negotiating with everybody.
Well, that's good. We're not part of them anymore, are we? So that's
Thank God
fine.
for that. Yeah.
First sensible thing you've said all afternoon.
Absolutely right. Is that all you've got to say then about Suella?
And then she resigned because she spat
What
her nose out.
what about the mysterious I used the wrong phone excuse? Isn't that one of the worst excuses of all time?
terrible.
Nobody
Yeah.
believes it, do they?
No.
I'm not asking. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Don't ask
I'm not
me.
asking
Don't
Susan
Susan.
to put on the spot. But I have to say, I don't know whether you have one of these, two phone scenarios. But,
No, I
you know,
don't. No,
You've got 3 phones, haven't you, Mike?
Well, it's like having your mistress and your wife, and you go, "Oh Christ, I've sent the wrong message." I have never done that, obviously. But
It's too late. We don't believe you now.
I'm told by people who have worked in Downing Street that loads of people have these, secret phones, and they know when to use them, and they don't make mistakes because you can't. If you're a
They
cabinet
don't need to
minister,
have a government phone and a personal phone.
it's not difficult, is it? It's really not difficult.
None of that rang true. Look, I'm
No.
sure lots of ministers are accidentally sending official sensitive from WhatsApp accounts. I'm sure it happens all the time. Why that's the ostensible excuse for
Right.
her resignation, I've got no idea. But in lots of ways, I've actually got respect for her for resigning because she was not enabled to do the job
Yeah.
that she was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so better to leave with dignity. And in fact, it's what they all should have done at the beginning.
But should she not then have resigned
it's
on
still the
principle and
beginning,
said,
though, that's the trouble.
I'm not going to be able to work with
We're
this
6
government
weeks
because they're stopping me from doing what I thought was their policy.
On immigration,
Rather than
Yeah.
pretending that she'd sent some dodgy message to the wrong person.
Exactly.
And which nobody believes.
Yeah, that's
because
what
that,
the
I think, will
plank-
damage her. If she does want to run as a candidate, I think that will damage her credibility.
She's an absolute plank.
Yeah.
I don't know. Will it damage her credibility? What do you think, Susan?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Well, in
there
a
isn't much
government with
credibility
no
left.
credibility whatsoever.
No,
Probably won't make any
exactly right.
difference.
We shouldn't keep putting Susan on the spot. It's not
You're
fair.
being very
Susan.
Oh, God. You've been watching the news, Susan.
Sorry.
He's just called her Cruella. You want to go at him?
But I told you were being
Now,
unkind.
listen. Now it's your
Yes.
chance. You can be unkind about your next nominee if you wish.
Well, I'd nominate Sadiq Khan again if I could, if I could persuade you. But this time it's Jeremy Corbyn, and
I'd forgotten all about him.
yes, so had I. But he sort of pops up now and again, and he was going to write a book called Why We Are Socialists. Yeah.
Just in time for
$9.99 this book was going to be, and he was going to get all his friends to write different segments of it.
Oh dear.
So
what, 3 chapters?
It got halfway. Yeah, it got halfway there, and suddenly people that have paid up front have got their money back, and the Twitter account has been deleted, and it's gone
do you think he doesn't know why people should be socialists? He's got to run out of ideas.
It does.
Yeah, this is going to be harder than I thought. He got halfway through the foreword, you know, and went, no, even I don't believe this rubbish. I do miss him slamming the car door, though. I used to love that. It was a bit like
and the donkey jacket.
What was that? I think it was a Monty Python thing or something like that. No, well, you slam the car door, wake up the neighbour. Yes. Or was it not 9 o'clock news or something? But they had a thing where somebody would just slam the car door. And it was like every morning, him coming out, surprised when he was the Labour leader, that there was a photographer there every morning.
Felt inconvenient.
He hated it. But it's like, you think you'd kind of get used to it and just walk calmly to the car, wouldn't you?
No, he was hopeless, wasn't he?
He really was.
I still think Sadiq Khan's far worse, obviously, but I mean, you know.
Well, Sadiq Khan's still in a position of power, whereas Corbyn really isn't.
No, that's right.
Is he even in the Labour Party parliamentary
they
group?
He's
still in the party, isn't he? But he's not in the parliamentary. Yeah, so he still turns up for work every day.
Yeah, I guess that's what kind of...
There are still people in the Labour Party, though, who are really, really sad that he's not there.
Yes, there's
and
still
who really hate Keir Starmer still.
The whole momentum movement. Well, I'm not surprised they don't like Keir Starmer. I mean, yesterday, everybody thought he was going to annihilate Liz Truss. Now, I was working, so I didn't see it. But apparently he didn't. And
well, I mean, he's come up with some good lines and some good quips, but the problem now is that people are saying he should have been a bit more serious. He should have taken it, because this is a genuine crisis. He shouldn't be laughing. And they're all howling with laughter at everything she said. So it was a bit unedifying,
I think
wasn't
it's really disrespectful to the people of this country. It's the wrong time for jokes. I mean, finally, he's found some quips and a bit of buzz, and it's the wrong time. It's embarrassing.
Being told
like,
by
as a
Keir
nation.
Starmer, it's a bit like Mark Drakeford this week, isn't it? And him losing his temper.
We should give him an honourable mention, actually.
He should be mentioned in dispatches, I think.
He was
but
very
the pair
weird.
of them having a go at people, it's a bit like being savaged by a sheep.
Yes, that's not an original line, though. It's a dead sheep.
Dead sheep.
Dead sheep. You've got to get it right. It's a bit. It's also like I'm a quitter. I'm a quitter, not a fighter, whichever way around it is. That was actually Peter Mandelson. It's Peter Mandelson's quote, that was. Anyway, coming up next, I'll be nominating my second plank of the week, and it's not pretty, I have to say. Neither am I. We'll see you after this. Blah, blah, blah. James Max.
Love it.
Anyway, listen, this is Plank of the Week. We are back. We're nearly finished the show, but we've still got one more nominee to go, and that is, of course, myself and my second nomination. And I'm going to go with something which I nominate quite a lot, and a lot of people don't like me nominating, but it is, of course, the NHS. Because the NHS is the jewel in the crown, is it not, of this country? And everybody says how great it is and everybody says how brilliant it is. But this week alone, they managed to leave a 95-year-old war veteran. I mean, I don't know how they pick these people, but it's not a great idea. Lying in a hospital corridor for 26 hours on a trolley because they couldn't get him into a bed. Now, they say, of course, that the reason for that is there's no room in the hospital because the people who are actually well enough to be discharged can't be discharged because there's no care homes for them to go to. And everybody knows that there's a big problem. But I would like to say this once and for all. I say it pretty much every week. Isn't it time that we started to realise this is nothing to do with the politicians who have supposedly wrecked the NHS? It's everything to do with the NHS, who don't know how to run literally a party in a brewery.
It's a management issue.
You know, it's a management issue. They've got bad management. They've got bad people running the health trust. They don't understand economics. They don't understand how to spend money. They don't understand how to procure anything.
And the problem, of course,
and they don't understand how to recruit people.
And
everything doesn't work.
Accountability. No one is accountable. So if you've got 190 billion quid and you're not accountable to anybody, either as a a trust manager or head of the NHS, or even arguably as Secretary of State for Health, whoever that's going to be in a couple of weeks' time, no accountability means no responsibility.
Right.
So no wonder. We've got to stop treating the NHS like it's on a pedestal. So the reason you get criticised for it is because we see it as this big national treasure.
That's the sacred cow, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing. Right? I don't want to see the NHS go. I don't even want to see it privatised. But I do think that we need to start thinking about running the NHS as a private business, like a private business.
But they brought in the former head of TSB, and he was I can't remember his name now, but he was like the head of the health service as well, and he said that they still need more cash. We can't. But
they always say that.
Yeah, but it's true.
But it isn't true.
If we talk about the management in there, we have less administrators in the NHS than comparable other countries.
No. 48% of the entire NHS budget goes on non-clinical people. 48%.
Yeah, I understand that, but we still have less administrators.
Yeah, but you've got to admit,
elsewhere.
JJ, the point is that the left and the right have these arguments all the time, and the left always say that it's the fault of the government because they keep cutting it, and the right always say it's the fault of the people in there because they don't know how to spend the money properly. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. The point is this, that you have to admit it doesn't work very well. Yeah. If you can't get a doctor's appointment because you literally can't spend half an hour on the phone at 8 o'clock in the morning, if you can't get your kid into the A&E because there's no ambulance for them, you have to drive them there yourself, you can at least admit that it doesn't work. Yeah. And nobody's willing to do that. Certainly not in the Labour Party.
In some areas, yes.
But the problem is the public doesn't have the appetite for the conversation because it is such a sacred
They're starting to get the appetite for it.
They will do because no one can get any good treatment. Yeah. Now, there is an immediate fix for the current problem. You know, this poor guy who's stuck in, on a trolley in a corridor.
Yeah, he was an RAF veteran from the Second World War.
It's disgraceful. But the thing is, part of this is because all the care home workers were sacked because they didn't want to be vaccinated.
Yeah, there was part of that.
40,000 people lost their jobs, and that's why people can't be moved from hospitals to care homes. So if they would apologise to those care home workers, compensate them and reinstate them, that would be an immediate sticking plaster on this problem.
Before COVID,
no, it's not just that. It's everything.
But it would be an immediate fix.
Before COVID, we had a 5.2 million backlog. Yeah. COVID has only added another couple of million on top of that.
No, it is.
That's a couple of million people.
Yeah, it's a couple of million people. But what I'm saying is that COVID was not the cause of the NHS falling down. The NHS was already at its knees. It's already understaffed. We've still got 100,000 vacancies from nurses. And when we're trying to bring in, and when Liz Truss says she wants to bring in more people from abroad, more foreigners.
We're running out of time. Luckily, we're running out of time. We have to tell JJ to shut up because it's time to award the Plank of the Week right now. It's pretty obvious, I think, this week, guys. I mean, we've had some great nominations. Steve Carter's great.
James Corden,
very good.
Thank you.
Yours were great. EastEnders were very good. Meghan Markle, very good, of course, as well. But in the end, it has to be only one woman. It has to be Liz Truss. It's Liz Truss. She's the shortest ever serving Prime Minister.
You are
shortest ever serving Prime Minister in the history of this country. I'm afraid.
I take back my statement.
Liz Truss, well done. You might not be the Prime Minister anymore, but at least you can say, I won Plank of the Week. Thank you to everybody. Susan, JJ, Russell, Laura. Thank you so much. It's been a brilliant edition. We'll be back same time next week, of course, 7 o'clock Friday. You don't want to miss it. I wonder who's going to be Prime Minister by then.